what are downslope winds? How do they impact wildfire behavior? I think what you commonly hear in the media and the news are Santa Ana winds, and then of course only in that fall period. So I had always thought the wind gets really bad in the fall, and that's what's happening. But it sounds like it is much longer. There's just conditions there. So kind of explain through that. And are downslope winds really only a California thing, or are they elsewhere?
Yeah, so the Santa Ana winds are definitely only a California thing, and even only a Southern California thing. But downslope winds is really the more general feature of those types of events, and those can happen pretty much anywhere in the globe. Don't get me wrong, you're not going to have it out in the plains where you don't have complex terrain, because that's a key ingredient. The bottom line is you have very strong winds. They can potentially be long lasting, and they're going to be associated with very dry air masses. So you've got strong winds and dry air, key for fire, as long as the fuels are, again, available or cured for burning. So the prolonged events can potentially have higher impacts because they have more drying potential. Other, wind features, such as those associated with, cold fronts or frontal passages, are going to be a bit more short-lived, and then potentially be associated with precipitation as well. So those are a few of the things that set downslope windstorms apart from other types of weather features. The Santa Anas, coming back to those are, specifically Southern California. But if we even focus into Santa Barbara, we have what's called the Sundowner. Because these are tied to terrain, they tend to get their, local names. And the local name for Northern California is then the Diablo winds. So this is, it makes it a bit tricky when you come to a new area to understand exactly what those local patterns are and what folks call them. But they are a notorious enough wind to gain their own local names, and even ominous ones at that, such as the Diablo winds of Northern California. Yeah, not unique to California.
What technically is going on? Do you have some sort of an air mass that I guess is then funneling through certain terrain, or are two systems meeting and one is moving quite rapidly? Like, how, just in a layman's sense, but what's occurring there? Because obviously
Yeah,
in Colorado we get, they talk about 90-mile-an-hour winds here, and they don't bat an eye. And on the East Coast, that's a hurricane. So it's just been very interesting to understand what is going on off these mountains.
totally. So it all comes to how airflow moves over or around a mountain. So depending on what that topographic feature is, you might have, flow splitting. So you'll have flow just going around a peak, and having that, movement around. When you start to have flow over top of a feature, that's what we have when we have these downslope windstorms. So basically, they don't have the ability to go around. They're forced to go over top. When they go over top, they're also met with stable layers. So that energy that wants to continue to propagate up actually gets deflected downwards. So we basically have, strong downward flow. So we're pulling air from aloft down. And this is called the Venturi effect. If you want to get scientific, the analogy for this is picture a garden hose, putting your thumb over 3/4 of the garden hose, and the increased pressure and the increased flow that we see when you pinch that. And that's essentially what's happening. We're having a pinch at the top of the mountain crest, but also because of a few other dynamics, it deflects that energy towards the base. And it's not only confined to the ridge tops.